connecting the knowledge of the act with the act itself has never yet been built. Acts are never what they appear to us to be. We have taken great pains to learn that external things are not as they appear to us. Well, it is the same with internal phenomena. All moral acts are in reality something different. We cannot say anything more about them, and all acts are essentially unknown to us. The general belief, however, has been and still is quite the contrary. The most ancient realism is against us. Up to the present, humanity has thought an action is what it appears to be. In rereading these words, a very expressive passage from Schopenhauer occurs to me, and I will quote it as a proof that he, too, without the slightest scruple, continued to adhere to this moral realism. Each one of us is in reality a competent and perfect moral judge, knowing exactly good and evil, made holy by loving good and despising evil. Such is every one of us, insofar as the acts of others, and not his own, are under consideration, and when he has merely to approve or disapprove, whilst the burden of the performance of the acts is borne by other shoulders. Everyone is therefore justified in occupying as confessor the place of God. Whenever we love someone and venerate and admire him, and afterward come to perceive that he is suffering, which always causes us the utmost astonishment, since we cannot but feel that the happiness we derive from him must flow from a superabundant source of personal happiness, our feelings of love, veneration, and admiration are essentially changed. They become more tender. That is, the gap that separates us seems to be bridged over, and there appears to be an approach to equality. It now seems possible to give him something in return, whilst we had previously imagined him as being altogether above our gratitude. Our ability to requite him for what we have received from him arouses in us feelings of much joy and pleasure. We endeavor to ascertain what can best calm the grief of our friend, and we give it to him. If he wishes for kind words, looks, attentions, services, or presents, we give them. But above all, if he would like to see us suffering from the sight of his suffering, we pretend to suffer. For all this secures for us the enjoyment of active gratitude, which is equivalent, in a way, to good-natured revenge. If he wants none of these feelings and refuses to accept them from us, we depart from him chilled and sad, almost mortified. It appears to us as if our gratitude had been declined, and on this point of honor, even the best of men is still somewhat touchy. It results from all this that even in the best case there is something humiliating in suffering, and something elevating and superior in sympathy, a fact which will keep the two feelings apart forever and ever. The lust of property and love. What different associations each of these ideas evoke. And yet it might be the same impulse twice named, on the one occasion disparaged from the standpoint of those already possessing, in whom the impulse has attained something of repose, and who are now apprehensive for the safety of their possession. On the other occasion viewed from the standpoint of the unsatisfied and thirsty, and therefore glorified as good. Our love of our neighbor, is it not a striving after new property? And similarly, our love of knowledge, of truth, and in general all the striving after novelties. We gradually become satiated with the old and securely possessed, and again stretch out our hands. Even the finest landscape in which we live for 3 months is no longer certain of our love, and any kind of more distant coast excites our covetousness. The possession for the most part becomes smaller through possessing. Our pleasure in ourselves seeks to maintain itself by always transforming something new into ourselves, that is, just possessing. To become satiated with a possession, that is, to become satiated with ourselves. One can also suffer from excess. Even the desire to cast away, to share out, can assume the honorable name of love. When we see anyone suffering, we willingly utilize the opportunity then afforded to take possession of him. The beneficent and sympathetic man, for example, does this. He also calls the desire for new possession awakened in him by the name of love, and has enjoyment in it, as in a new acquisition suggesting itself to him. The love of the sexes, however, betrays itself most plainly as the striving after possession. The lover wants the unconditioned sole possession of the person longed for by him. He wants just as absolute power over her soul as over her body. He wants to be loved solely, and to dwell and rule in the other soul as what is highest and most to be desired. When one considers that this means precisely to exclude all the world from a precious possession, a happiness, and an enjoyment, when one considers that the lover has in view the impoverishment and privation of all other rivals, and would like to become the dragon by his golden hoard, as the most inconsiderate and selfish of all conquerors and exploiters, when one considers finally that to the lover himself the whole world besides appears indifferent, colorless, and worthless, and that he is ready to make every sacrifice, disturb every arrangement, and put every other interest behind his own, one is verily surprised that this ferocious lust of property and injustice of sexual love should have been glorified and deified to such an extent at all times. Yea, that out of this love the conception of love as the antithesis of egoism should have been derived, when it is perhaps precisely the most unqualified expression of egoism. Here, evidently, the non-possessors and desirers have determined the use of language. There were, of course, always too many of them. Those who have been favored with much possession and satiety have, to be sure, dropped a word now and then about the raging demon, as, for instance, the most lovable and most beloved of all the Athenians, Sophocles. But Eros always laughed at such revilers. They were always his greatest favorites. There is, of course, here and there on this terrestrial sphere a kind of sequel to love, in which that covetous longing of two persons for one another has yielded to a new desire and covetousness, to a common, higher thirst for a superior ideal standing above them. But who knows this love? Who has experienced it? Its right name is friendship. It gives me a melancholy happiness to live in the midst of this confusion of streets, of necessities, of voices. How much enjoyment, impatience, and desire, how much thirsty life and drunkenness of life comes to light here every moment. And yet it will soon be so still for all those shouting, lively, life-loving people. How everyone's shadow, his gloomy traveling companion, stands behind him. It is always as in the last moment before the departure of an emigrant ship. People have more than ever to say to one another. The hour presses, the ocean with its lonely silence waits impatiently behind all the noise, so greedy, so certain of its prey. And all suppose that the past has been nothing or a small matter, that the near future is everything. Hence this haste, this crying, this self-deafening and self-overreaching. Everyone wants to be foremost in this future. And yet, death and the stillness of death are the only things certain and common to all in this future. How strange that this sole thing that is certain and common to all exercises almost no influence on men, and that they are the furthest from regarding themselves as the brotherhood of death. It makes me happy to see that men do not want to think at all of the idea of death. I would fain do something to make the idea of life even 100 times more worthy of their attention.
Got a date with an angel, got to meet her at 7. Got a date with an angel, and I'm on my way to heaven. Got a date with an angel, got to meet her at 7. Got a date with an angel, and I'm on my way to heaven.